And once a saint, always a saint. 26 years of 40 years represented, which is a pretty darn good turnout as well. The first thing that I want to do is, for the last year, there's been a committee that's been organizing this, and I want to make sure that we shout out. If we could go ahead and have your attention in the back. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start off by recognizing a committee. We've had a committee that's been working together on this for over the past year. We've been meeting and trying to put together everything that you saw tonight. And so if you can hold your applause till the end, that these are the people that really are responsible for making this happen tonight. We have Gary Cole, Jim Cook, Karsten Gotel, Corey Jones, Terry Keenan, Phil Crambuel, Paul Lincioni, Dan and Kim Masick, Nate McGowan, Sam Neely, Bruce and Mary Rasmussen, and Matt Sterling. If everybody could give them a round of applause. So the next thing that I want to do is to kind of explain to you how we put this together. When we initially got it together, we kind of thought, well, you know what, maybe we could get 50, 100 people in a room. And it just continued to grow and grow as that enthusiasm on Facebook and around the community got bigger and bigger. We decided what we wanted to do, though, is we wanted to try to get some sponsors. And there was one family that's meant a lot to the St. Charles soccer community. And that the family, when we went to them, the first thing they said is just tell us how we can help. And so the committee wanted to just make sure that we had a special shout out to Lee and Katie Marinicio for their support. The great thing about the Marinicio name is when you say it, everybody just smiles because everybody loves the Marinicios and everything that they represent. So Lee, thank you so much for everything you've done. The next thing that the committee talked about, and Phil Crambuel was the one that brought this up, but I know we have a lot of different people standing, but what I would like to do is when we thought about how did St. Charles Soccer start and why was St. Charles Soccer so successful, one of the things we came back to was the importance of Tri-City Soccer. 1977, Tri-City started, and to this day, they still exist. So if you could just raise your hand if you've ever played for a Tri-City Soccer Association team. Let's take a look. There we go. I really wish that Bob Guyton could be here tonight because Tri-City Soccer has been such an important part of what soccer is to this community. The next thing I want to do is when we were talking about the importance of St. Charles Soccer, all of a sudden we thought, you know what? I wonder if it's so important that somebody in the community might recognize it and might be interested in recognizing it, not just here, but on a statewide level. We have a long-time St. Charles family, a good friend of mine, who not only was our mayor for 8 years, but is now our state senator. And when I reached out to him, he said, you know what, I have an idea. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Senator Don DeWitt, who is going to talk to us about St. Charles Soccer.
Thank you, Judge, and welcome everybody. Wow, what a great turnout at the St. Charles Moose. I have a confession to make. I never played soccer at St. Charles High School. My days in athletics started out in the football program. And my recollections of the St. Charles soccer program was Coach Kerner complaining about the soccer players on the next field taking up their space. Little did he know what was forming just a few feet away from where we bloodied our knees and elbows in athletics in St. Charles. But this really has been a great process to watch develop. You know, I came into the city government. I graduated from St. Charles High School, 1972. Boy, if you haven't been over to Thompson, Man, what a transition that place has taken. I encourage you all to take a visit. But getting out of high school in 1972, the program was really just in its infancy. And in 1977, the Tri-City program started. And as the saying goes, the rest is history. Over the years as an alderman and as your mayor, from 2005 to 2013, what a great honor to watch this program just continue to develop, and championship after championship coming back to St. Charles. I think it's really one of the great things that has made our community such a wonderful place to live, and everybody in this room needs to be congratulated for their efforts in making that happen. I also want to give a shout out to Judge Clint. I have really enjoyed watching the history reports on his Facebook page over the last few months. And I have to tell you, I know he does that for fun, and I know how busy he's been. But as far as his day job goes, I think we all sleep a little bit easier knowing that justice is being served in the Kane County 16th District. So I don't want to take a lot of time because this proclamation is going to take just a couple of minutes. With your deference, I'm going to go ahead and read it. When Clint called and said, hey, what do you think we could do from a legislative standpoint? I felt this required a little higher calling, a little higher blessing in the state organization. So we are all blessed as elected officials in this state with fantastic staff, terrific writers. And so we submitted some information to our communications staff, and we got a certain gentleman to sign it. So I think it would be appropriate if I took just a few minutes with your forgiveness and read the following proclamation. Whereas the popularity of the sport of soccer skyrocketed in the late 70s throughout the state of Illinois. Whereas the Tri-City Soccer Association was formed in 1977 to provide players from the Tri-Cities an opportunity to play soccer. And whereas in 1978, a group of dedicated and motivated parents led by Bob Heilman, along with teacher Tim Daly, met to develop a plan to start a boys soccer program. And whereas with the support of Paul Bergeson, God rest his soul, Athletic Director and District 303 Superintendent Don D'Amico, the District 303 School Board approved boys soccer as an IHSA sanctioned sport beginning in the fall season of 1979. And whereas the 79 St. Charles Boys Soccer Saints finished their first IHSA sanctioned season with a record of 8 wins, 11 losses, and 2 ties. Whereas the Saints quickly became one of the top programs in the state of Illinois. Whereas St. players were quickly recognized as being the top players in the state, with Mike Miller being named the first all-area player in 1983. Mike with us tonight? Sam Mealy, the first All-State and All-Midwest player in 1984. George Wendell being named the first All-American in 1985. Derek Shanahan being named the Illinois Player of the Year in 1997. And Charlie Lyons being drafted in the 2015 Major League Soccer Super Draft by the Seattle Sounders. And whereas in the 1990s, the Saints were recognized as the top boys soccer program in the state of Illinois, and one of the best in the nation, compiling a record of 228 wins, 25 losses, 12 ties, placing in the top 4 in the state 5 times, finishing 4th in 1990, 2nd in 1991, 3rd in 97, and winning the IHSA state championship in 1995 and 96, finishing undefeated in both years. And whereas the Saints enter their 40th season having played a total of 975 games with an incredible overall record of 673 wins, 211 losses, and 91 ties. Whereas all the former players recognize, and this is the key to this proclamation, I would suggest, whereas all of the former players recognize that more important than the wins and losses and the championships were the lifelong friendships forged while playing this game that they love here in St. Charles. Therefore, I'm not J.B. Pritzker, but he signed this. I, J.B. Pritzker, Governor of the State of Illinois, recognize the St. Charles Saints boys soccer program for its accomplishments, recognizing the dedication, hard work, and passion it takes from all of those involved to create and sustain a level of excellence that it has over its 40-year history. And this proclamation, there's a copy on the board, is signed by the Governor of the great state of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker. Ladies and gentlemen, and I have a telephone call scheduled with the Governor Monday morning. I will be sure to let him know that this was presented. If anybody will cover for me, I appreciate it. With that, Judge Hall, I'll give it back to you. Thank you all very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
So on top of that, when you leave, if you'd like, not too many soccer programs in the state of Illinois can talk about a proclamation from the governor. So we have about 150 copies of that, and so if anybody wants to take that and take that home to get it framed, something really, really special and something that makes the St. Charles soccer program stand out just a little bit more. So thanks again. The next thing that we want to do is we want to talk a little bit and hear from our coaches. When we talk about the history of St. Charles soccer, we really broke it down into 4 decades. And the first decade I want to talk about, and then we're going to call Tim Daly up. After Tim, we're going to call Coach Keenan, then Coach Mitchison, and then we're going to end with Coach Denuzzo, who's going to tell us a little bit about where we're at right now. Decade 1, Tim, as I have you come up, the Decade 1 soccer program finished its first decade with an overall record of 174 wins, 52 losses, and 16 ties. That was a 75% winning percentage. There were 5 20-win seasons, 4 quarterfinal appearances highlighted by, and I want to just make sure that the class of '84 recognizes this, a 3rd place finish by the team in 1994, but the class of 1985. So JP, you have that ball there. So I want to introduce our coach, a Hall of Fame coach with the IHSA, and a good friend and somebody I'm really, really proud of, and everything that he's accomplished, Tim Daly. Yeah!
Thank you, everyone. This will be very quick. A couple of announcements before I start. All the 80s guys, just so you're clear on this, Clint Hull picked the all 80s decade. Gary Cole, I don't know what he was thinking of, seconded. And Jimmy Hartwell, not on the first 11, he's your best friend. I would say the next campaign comes around, think about that contribution. Seriously, for Clint and the committee, I don't think any of us can appreciate how much they did except the members of the committee. So I'm going to make a suggestion. All the guys on the committee, the 10 guys he mentioned, if you'd stand up, raise your hand. If you're standing up, please, let's see everybody. Committee. Knowing soccer players and others associated with them, my suggestion is, with all the work these guys did, the least we can do tonight is, after we're done speaking here, make sure none of these guys pay for any drinks. And most importantly, and I'm truly serious about this, All the people who helped with this, you did a remarkable job, but the one guy, the driver, as he's a driver with so many things in this town, and particularly for St. Charles East High School, Clint Hull is truly he is one of, and I mean this sincerely, he's one of the finest men I have ever known, and he deserves so much credit, not just for this, but everything he does for this town and this school. And Clint, we can't thank you enough. Just a couple words on the history of the team. In 1977, I came to St. Charles. First year over at the new campus. I spent the year planning, hoping for a soccer program the following year. We had our first team in 1978. It was not sanctioned by the high school. It was a club team. It was actually one of our better teams. And the following year, 1979, we had our first sanctioned high school team 40 years ago this season. And as Senator DeWitt said, the rest is history. It's your history, you guys. You have accomplished all this in 40 years. Congratulations to yourself. None of this would have happened as quick as it did, as well as it did, without, and I have to mention some families, I'll forget people, but there were so many, not just players, but families who did so much for this program in the beginning. And let me just read some of their names. The Hulls, the Kegleys, the Rileys, Drawers, Gibbonses, the Coles, the Mealies, Denkers, and the Heilmans. And all of you, if you're here and I forgot your names, please accept my apologies. Without these people, without these families, these parents, we simply wouldn't have what we have today. And I want to thank them all from the bottom of my heart. And for those, and there are always people, of course, who can't be at things like this. A number of people have passed who were at the very beginning. And I just, thinking, listening to Clint and talking to all these other players here, former players, thinking about people like Gene Hull and Mike Mealy, and above all, one of my best friends, Bob Hyla. Just imagine if they were here tonight, what they would think about this and the bows they would take and should take for what they accomplished back in the beginning, and look what it's become today. So in their memory, again, I'd like a round of applause, please. Just a couple words, and all I want to do is talk for just a minute or two. Clint asked me for some comments about the first decade, but I took a little bit bigger view. I like to look at the big picture, and what I see, what impresses me the most, is the continuity from the very beginning, from 40 years ago up till today. And that's with the players, with the coaches, with the families. And I broke it down into three things. I wanted to highlight three things that I think are unique to this program. First is the absolute commitment to success. Now you say, well, everybody's competitive, and that's true. Everybody who plays high school sports is competitive. But to me, certainly when I coached, and I've followed the teams ever since, what sets you off, all of you, from everybody else, to me is almost a ferocious sort of attitude to be successful. Not everybody has that. And if you're a coach, you know what I'm talking about. You don't always see it. But at St. Charles, we always did, and that's one of the things I think that makes this a unique program. And again, all credit to you guys. The second thing, and this I know I tried to stress it, I know the coaches who followed me also did the same thing, and that's that desire to be a part of something a little bit bigger than yourself. We had great individual players, but more importantly, we had teams, and we had unselfish people who have gone through this program year after year, decade after decade, and that's, I think, what makes this program unique. As Brett Hall, so many of you know Brett, used to say, it's all about this. It's all about the heart. And you guys have that, and not every program honestly does. Third thing, just kind of an aside, reunions, this is a great reunion, and I'm sure a lot of you, whether it's a high school reunion, soccer reunion, people come to reunions the kind of people who come to reunions are generally successful, they're happy, they're content, and above all, they want to share the things that they went through with their peers. And that's what I'm seeing here tonight. And that's the best thing. Because to me, the most important thing of this program and all the qualities that all of you have brought to this is the joy you brought to your games, to your teams. And that is so obvious tonight. Just look at the people talking to one another, the guys congratulating one another, so on and so on. And that's the best thing about it. One of the few things about getting old as I am now is that you have a selective memory. Can be good, can be bad. The good thing is that all we remember are the positives. All the good times, the great stories, and that's what tonight is to me. Tonight, I know, as soon as I'm done talking, as soon as everybody's done talking, everybody in this room is going to be telling stories again. I've seen guys, older guys, for a number of years, and every time we get together, as Clint says, we tell the same stories over and over and over. But they're always funny. I don't care how many times I'll just give you a couple of examples here. Matt Ricks, who I haven't seen for years. One of the great stories about Matt Ricks, he's a young kid, one of the toughest kids I ever coached, and he is deathly afraid of nobody in the entire world except his goalkeeper, Chris Hager. Jimmy Hartwell, over here. Stories about Jimmy Hartwell are legendary. Jimmy was a defender. He thought he was a striker, and he played like a striker. Sam Mealy, there are no end of stories about Sam Mealy, but my favorite one, every time I think of this, I laugh. I was thinking about it today, and I couldn't stop laughing. Sam Mealy, during what was before one of our games, had a few words, and I mean that, with Coach Hilder from Lake Park. Those of you, probably a lot of you remember Coach Hilder from Lake Park. It did not go well. Coach Hilder was a good friend of mine, and got in my face and is yelling and screaming and spitting at me and so on like he always does. Every time he came to St. Charles, he was just manic. He was nuts. Mostly because he always lost. And all I could say to him after this time, he just went on and on and on, and I finally just said, hey, I agree with Sam. And finally, and this, it wasn't very funny at the time, Clint Hull and George Wendell going out with the same girl. It was not a pretty story. It didn't have a good ending, but right now I think it's good for some laughs. These are just a handful of the stories. There are literally hundreds more out there. I know you're all going to be doing the same thing as I am after we finish up here tonight, telling stories, and it's that to me makes St. Charles soccer exciting, made it rather exciting, challenging, and above all, satisfying and meaningful. One more comment, all right? How many of you saw Clint's fantasy games online? Right? It was hilarious, and it just again proves his commitment to this program. I thought they were so funny, and I enjoyed every bit of them, with maybe one little exception. I have one concern. In the final game, Final Fantasy game, it was the 90s guys versus the 80s guys, and the 90s guys, you heard Senator DeWitt talk about them. Unparalleled record of accomplishment. 2 state titles. Brilliant coach, right over here, Coach Keenan. Winning game after game, season after season, on and on and on and on. And in the Final Fantasy game, the 90s guys defeated the 80s guys. Just a quick reminder, 90s guys, and with all due respect, and I really mean that, it was a fantasy game. And if you guys ever went head-to-head with the 80s guys, your win, it would never happen. argue about that all night, and have a great evening. Thanks.
Well, hey, first of all, about the fantasy game, it was such a good write-up. I had somebody email me and ask me what time the actual game was on Saturday. So, I don't think Mike Miller's put on a pair of shoes for 30 years, so we would have loved to have seen that. But a couple things before we switch over to Decade 2. I saw somebody come in that I know we all want to recognize as well. The programs don't exist without the support of the athletic directors, and we had one of the best at. We talked about Paul Bergeson. He's a legend, and we miss him. But we also have with us another legendary athletic director who was so supportive of us when he was in that office, and I just want to recognize Wayne DeMar. Wayne is one of the greatest. And before I turn it over to the next decade, I want to also talk about a couple things. When you come into this room, so our committee was made up of mostly guys. After we did all this planning, somebody said, well, do you think we should talk about decorations? And we all looked at each other and said, no, not really. And then we thought, you know what, we probably should think about doing that. And we turned over to Kim Masick and Mary Rasmussen. And Kim and Mary, if you could stand up, please. Mary's over here. Just an absolutely incredible job, and I think everybody would agree with me. There's a wow factor when you came in tonight. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Yeah, take. So the next thing I want to do is I want to talk about Decade 2. It was a fantasy game. It absolutely killed me to let you guys win, but I knew I was going to see you here tonight, and it was hard to justify having us win. I do agree that we would have in a real game, but we can't play that game, so congratulations on your fictional championship. Somebody said we should? No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. So, all right, I want to talk about Decade 2 with another famous coach in St. Charles history. The Decade 2, the Saint soccer program finished its second decade with an overall record of 228 wins, 25 losses and 22 ties, an incredible 87% winning percentage. Highlighted by undefeated state championships, which had never been done in IHSA history, and the Saints did it in back-to-back years in 1995 and 1996. In 1996, the Saints finished the season ranked as the number 2. I don't know who in the hell would have been number 1, but the second best high school soccer team in the country by the United States Soccer Coaches Association in their season-ending poll. In addition to the 2 state championships, the Saints placed second in 1991, third in 1997, and fourth in 1990. So I'll tell you what, my first one was born in 1996. I went to a lot of those Saints games. You guys were just phenomenal. It was. I still remember watching and just being absolutely amazed. And so with that, I want to turn the mic over to the coach of that decade, Coach Keenan.
Hi guys, it's all, can you hear me okay? I don't know if you can understand me, but you can hear me. Just want to say thank you for everybody that put this night on, whatever. It's just absolutely brilliant. When I talked to our boys years ago, they were boys then, I used to say, when you get older, okay, and you have your own kids, you'll know all about it, okay? Well, now they do, okay, and so, okay, they're in that position now, whatever, but it's just absolutely, I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here, whatever. All those years ago, I don't think Wayne DeMar kind of hired me. Well, we actually were here, we were appointed to our new jobs on the same day. So I kind of knew that Wayne knew nothing about soccer. So I kind of manipulated him all the time, whatever, to kind of get what I wanted, whatever. So, but he played along, so, but he was a good man, and always a good man, whatever, and so supportive. And I think I'll follow on from what Tim said, and I think that for Tim's era and that decade, a little bit more than that, it was just wonderful to start something off, whatever. Like, I mean, soccer to me and our staff and coaches from Scotland and England and Ireland, it was second nature to us. But coming here, whatever, and playing the real football, okay, sorry anybody that played with this oblong thing, whatever, you know. But it was just something, you know, that we were just very, very fortunate to be here at the time when it was growing. And so all I can say is that we were very, very, very lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the wonderful talent we had. And if I could say this, and I don't think people quite realize this, whatever, that a lot of other good schools were around. Main South is where my kids went to school, Libertyville, the neighbourhood schools, whatever, some city schools, whatever. They were probably just as much talent as we had. What we had was brilliant coaching. I should have put a disclaimer there. I don't mean myself. I had wonderful coaches, like some of the guys are here tonight. Eddie Piscarich just got here from Dallas. Dave Kintz, who, by the way, funny story, Dave walked onto the field one day, whatever, and I said, "Who's this weird-looking guy?" Whatever. And he gets up and he says, "I know nothing about soccer." He says, "But can you use a coach, whatever, because I'll give you everything I had, whatever." And that was one of the best decisions I ever made for Dave Kintz. Some of you know him, like from the police force and whatever. You've probably been stopped by him, but just absolutely a wonderful man, whatever, and a great influence, whatever, and a guy that saved me from getting more than one red card when I was here in Sinclair. Okay, so Dave used to be the one beside me when I would be kind of having a discussion with the referee, okay, because they were really, really bad, and Dave would be holding me by the hand and say, "You know what, Paul? Okay, no, you get yellow cards here, not green cards." But anyway, and also other guys that are here as well tonight that come out with me, whatever, Rob Etheridge and Lee Merrick, whatever, so awesome coaches. And I think it went back to Mr. DeMar and the athletic program, whatever, and Dr. Vanko and other people there to say, okay, we will give you coaches that are not necessarily teachers. I was a gym teacher at East, and these guys they're coaching the club teams, whatever, coaching the soccer team, whatever, coaching high school, whatever, with great consistency. And I think that's what I mean by the wonderful coaches we had, whatever, that separated us, whatever. Also, and again, following on what Tim said about the togetherness, okay, in 1999, Manchester United, who I absolutely detest, okay, I'm a Spurs fan. Any Spurs fans here? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Harry Kane today, 3 goals for England, should be playing for Ireland, by the way. His dad's from Galway. But anyway. So, anyway, just to get back to that, whatever, like we just had the importance of allowing me to do my job, whatever, and having the coaches there, whatever, allowing me to have coaches that weren't on staff, whatever. Unlike these days, sometimes there's a little bit more politics involved, whatever, so we won't go there. But anyway, but it was just wonderful to be allowed to work with the wonderful staff that we had. And year in, year out, whatever, we had the best group of kids ever. But to get back to Manchester United, in 1999, Manchester United won the Champions League, the English FA Cup, and the English Premiership. They were the first team anywhere in the major leagues in the world to do that. And a lot of people kind of come out with all these sayings, well, they were just like a wonderfully gifted technical team, whatever. And basically, Sir Alex Ferguson said, that's all garbage. Because what separated us from the other teams was that team spirit, that trust in each other, whatever, of just always being there for each other. And that's what we try to install in our boys, was that trust in each other, whatever. And no matter if you fell off the road type of thing, there was somebody always there to pick you up and have you back, whatever. And you know, so that was great. There was a couple of things that I had to kind of enforce, whatever, and it was kind of funny because Eddie had this kind of like his long hair tied up at the back, whatever, and I was trying to preach to the boys, you have to have the hair off your thing, whatever. And if you wore, back then they started to wear earrings, so I told them it was okay to wear earrings, but you had to wear a dress. I'm kind of very old Irish Catholic, very old-fashioned, whatever. So anyway, but the wonderful things, whatever. I remember Derek Shanahan, absolutely brilliant player for us, whatever. He showed up in green boots one day, and back then there weren't any green boots, whatever. He said to me, "Coach, can I wear these?" I said, "No." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "They're green boots, Derek, okay?" I said, "You're already a marked man, whatever. Why would you want to stand out, whatever? Why don't you just wear a big placard on your head? I'm Derek Shanahan. Kick me." So, anyway, it was wonderful. Another thing that, I'm bluffing this, by the way. I don't have any of this on these notes here, by the way. I just didn't but a couple of games stand out to us, whatever. One of our championship years, whatever, we played with Bonzi Valley at the super sectional at Willowbrook High School, and they had designs on being the champs. They were a very, very good team. Okay, well, we beat them 7-2. It was like amazing. Ryan Lindgren, I believe, had a 20-minute hat trick. Is that right, Kevin? Yeah, right. So, but absolutely brilliant, whatever. And I can only tell you that the joy and the good times that we had here, whatever. I've coached for 30 years, 33 years now, at club and at high school. And the decade that I had here was absolutely brilliant. It will live with me forever. And just meeting new friends here tonight and seeing that whole 40 years, whatever. It wasn't all about our decade. We just were lucky that we had everything came together very, very well, whatever. But it was just wonderful. The kids that we had, whatever, the qualities that we kind of instilled in them, whatever, the values. We did everything with class and dignity. Okay, and that was great, whatever. The one other game that I remember was, and Dave Kintz will remember this, I think, and Heidi, I think it was the night of your wedding. Okay, now did we play Sandberg that night, Dave? Right, so I'm right here. Sandberg were the reigning state champs, so we thought we'd ambush them. So what we did was we got a plaque and said, "Congratulations, okay, you're playing St. Charles East High School, whatever, guard of honor," came up the field, whatever, Sandberg's walking around like, you know, with their big heads, type of thing, whatever, thinking, what a really nice group of people. What we were. Okay, what we did was we went out and we beat them 5-0. So we kind of, like I said, ambushed them. But during that game, Dave and Heidi, his great lovely bride, got married that night, whatever. So them and the entire wedding party walked around the track, whatever, and came out, whatever, just to kind of give us a cheer, whatever. So that was brilliant. It was one of those moments. But again, I'll finish up, but I just want to say thank you to Wayne. I'll always be in your debt, Wayne, for giving me a chance, whatever, to be part of such a brilliant program. I didn't even know where St. Charles was when I came here. The only guy I knew out in St. Charles was Maurice McNally from the pub. Maurice and I played Irish football together, and that was the only person I knew out here, whatever. But it was a journey that I took, whatever, and just meeting people here tonight, seeing all those wonderful players and people, whatever, and just enjoying this. I can't tell you. I just want to thank everybody for what you've done in all the decades. And Vince, with the team this year, whatever, Vince, I just wish you guys all the very best. And if you want me to come out and kind of just give a little speech, whatever, I'll try to do that too. I won't keep it as long, but anyway. But listen, thank you so much, and enjoy the night.
So Paul said something that I have been remiss in. If I could go ahead and have your attention in the back. Another group we need to recognize is we're recognizing our head coaches here, but the program doesn't exist without all the great assistants we've had. So if you've ever been a coach for St. Charles Soccer, if you could please stand or raise your hand so that we can give you a round of applause. Neil, stand up. So, moving on to Decade 3. In Decade 3, the hard thing was, all the way in the back. So when we started Decade 3, that was the year and the decade that it all split. So we went from St. Charles High School to St. Charles East and St. Charles North. and it changed, obviously changed the landscape of soccer at the time. So Decade 3 had a real tough job. They now had a diluted talent pool, and we knew that they were going to face an uphill battle. But even with that uphill battle, I want to go through and indicate that the St. Charles East Saints finished the third decade with an overall record of 124 wins, 78 losses, and 39 ties. So that was a winning percentage of 60%. The 2000 and 2001 Saints advanced to the Super Sectional, so they made it all the way to the Elite Eight, and they finished above 500 in 8 of the 10 seasons. In that decade, we had a first. We had the first St. Charles player ever drafted. Goalie Charlie Lyon was drafted in the 2015 MLS Super Draft and became the first Saints player to ever sign a contract in the MLS. And the reason Charlie's not here tonight is because he is an MLS pool keeper, meaning that he can get called up by any MLS team to play whenever they need him. So we had 4 different coaches during that decade. We were trying to figure out who the best coach to talk about that decade would be. It was very easy. Coach Mitchison, come on up. We can give a round of applause.
If I could have one person come on up here and stand next to me. Dave Kintz, can you come on up, please? So, I'm not sure what happened in the mid to late 2000s, but this might have been a familiar pose you might have seen on the sidelines at one point. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of stand in front of Dave, and Dave's going to grab my shirt. Because, you know, I heard Coach Daly talk about the 3 things that he, you know, thought the program stands for. The 3 things I had to deal with were things I didn't like. The referees, code of conduct, right, and then the crossbar. All right, so, but in all seriousness, the original doink. In all seriousness, no. The 80s guys, I was that kid, and I need to say thank you to you guys. I was the kid that was over where the Mire is playing on Kane County Fairgrounds. I was the kid that came to Reed Field at night and listened to some terrible music being played as your warm-up tape. I was the kid that actually had to see your hair, right? And the earrings and everything like that. It was absolutely fabulous. So I do need to thank the 80s crew for what they did for St. Charles soccer. They put us on the map, and they actually, in my opinion, turned St. Charles into the soccer town in the state of Illinois. The 90s. I do need to thank, you know, Coach Keenan. Took a shot on me. I don't know if you remember this, Coach, when we had tryouts and we broke the teams up into St. Charles East and St. Charles North as a freshman team. And I walked up to you and said, I want those East boys. Because they were hardworking, they were talented, they listened, they played hard, they had grit and perseverance, and Coach Keenan said, yeah, take those boys. And Coach Wilson, who's over at North now, took the North kids, and I really didn't worry about them. Until a little bit later on. There's a game that I had the pleasure of coaching in. It was the first time St. Charles East played St. Charles North. We were fully, I had all seniors. St. Charles North was just growing up. What happened was Redley Middle School was being turned into St. Charles North High School. So we showed up. Here we are, big bad boys from the east side of town. And this is the moment I knew soccer in St. Charles was really good. We showed up, probably one of the top teams in the state, and we were actually playing little brothers of the guys on our team. They scored the first goal. We went down 1-0. I panicked. Coach Hancock, where you at? Where is he? Dave, stand up. Long time, say, give him a round. Long-time St. Charles coach. I'm looking down the sideline, tons of knowledge and so forth. We finally put one in. We didn't know the rules about overtime in the conference. The two athletic directors, Wayne DeMar standing over there, and then I forget the gentleman's name at St. Charles North, meet at half field. It's tied 1-1. We're not supposed to lose. I'm saying call the game, call the game, call the game, call the game. We got on the bus, went home. The first game was 1-1, St. Charles East versus St. Charles North. That's a game memory of mine. Another memory of mine was when we played, I think it was Jared and Jay and Wes. I saw Wes. Any other, the 2000 boys here? Raise your hand if you're a 2000 boy. Was at St. Viator. Viator was known for really good talent. They had a solid coach and so forth. But they also had a U.S. national team player on their field. About halftime, we saw him take his pads and walk off the field because he didn't want to play with us because we beat the tar out of him. I do have to tell a funny story about Paul. I don't know if Paul remembers this. I think it was a sectional game at Streamwood High School, and I was one of your assistant coaches, and Paul didn't think too highly of the referees. Paul was having some choice words for a referee, and the referee turns around. This is my first card I've ever gotten. The referee turns around, says, "Who said that?" And Paul goes, "He did." Take one for the team, coach, right? So, I just want to say that I have two boys myself. One actually plays high school soccer right now, and actually had the opportunity to play over at St. Charles North the other day. And seeing that high school grow up in the 2000s along with St. Charles East, guys, I'm telling you right now, soccer is just fine in St. Charles. They play with grit, they play hard, and they're talented. So, East, you got your hands full this year coming up. I don't know if you guys have played yet or not, but you got your hands full. But moving forward into the future, this sport in this town, in the Fox Valley, there's nobody better than STC. Hope everybody has a good night, and I'm going to hand it back over to Coach or Judge Hall.
All right, so I will tell you that when the committee got together, we talked about putting together a program. One of the first concerns is we said if the program goes over 30 minutes and there's St. Charles Saints players that can get a beer at the bar, we're going to be in trouble. And that's exactly what's going on. So I will tell you that we just have a little bit more of the program to go. I'd appreciate it if in the back you guys could kind of drink those beers silently because we've got a couple things to finish up with. And the next one is Decade 4. So in Decade 4, St. Charles East posted an overall record of 129 wins, 51 losses, and 16 ties. They had a 70% winning percentage. The Saints had a great run from 2012 to 2016, winning 77% of their games, averaging almost 18 wins a season, which rivaled the records that were posted by Decade 1 and Decade 2. The 2013 and 2014 Saints saw themselves ranked number 1 in the polls, which we hadn't seen in a long, long time. And I will tell you that I had a son that played on that team. The parents had to listen to me blah, 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 blah about the teams of the past. But I will tell you, there's a number of those guys over here. Actually, you guys are the youngest guys here. Could the class of 2012, 2013, 2014 stand up, please? These guys made it all the way to the Elite Eight, lost to the eventual state champion, but I remember thinking at that time, St. Charles soccer was back. And I will tell you that I've had a chance now to watch Coach Denuzzo, who's been at the head of the program now for 3 years. You're going to hear from him. I've watched him assemble a staff that consists of a lot of former St. Charles players, which is really, really important to me. The Akers brothers, Bruce Rasmussen, Neil, even though he wasn't a St. Charles guy, talk about the tradition of St. Charles soccer, and they embrace it. And when they play North, they want to beat North. And when they play Geneva, they want to beat Geneva. And I will tell you that we have a coach that's going to bring St. Charles back to winning the state championship. I have absolutely no doubt about that. So with no further introduction, I want to introduce Coach Vince Denuzzo.
A little bit over a month ago, I was out with the coaches and Clint, and we went to a bar together to put together an all-decade team. I was like a little kid in a candy store, just picking the old-timers' brains, Daly and Keenan. And afterwards, I just had 2 questions. How do you follow 2 Hall of Fame coaches that have won 200 games? And how did Keenan work with kids? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vince Denuzzo. It has been a privilege and an honor to be the coach for St. Charles Saints over the past 3 seasons. To come into a position following coaches that have had so much success in the sport is something that I don't take for granted. When I was interviewing with the position with Mr. Sommerfeld, he walked me down the athletic hallway, which is covered in trophies, and a lot of them are Saint soccer trophies. And I knew at that point that this is where I was going to be. Clint asked me to update everyone on the state of the program. Here's the state of the program. We set 1 goal early, one of many goals, and one of them was do not get any dissent cards. That was over game 3 when Coach Wes Akers got the dissent card. Seriously though, over the past 3 seasons, the staff has spent time getting to know the players, their strengths, weaknesses, and how they could best contribute to the program. We started a new summer and winter program. The first year I was here, we had 1 returning starting player in a season that we went 8-10 and only got better as the season went on. We lost to the North Stars in the regional final, which kills me. The following year, though, we went 13-8, and now this year we've had a great start to the season. We're 5-1. We've had 11 goals for and only 2 conceded. Our coaching staff is working tirelessly to bring home another state championship, and that is our goal, and I look forward to continuing the outstanding tradition that this program and the alumni have set for us. Thank you to everyone who continues to support us, and a big thank you to Clinton Hall and this amazing event. Thank you.
All right, so before we get to the announcement of the all-decade, or not the all-decade, the all-time team, I have a good friend here and a supporter of the Saint Soccer program, Miles Keenan, who is the son of Terry and Therese Keenan, and Miles is asked to say a little something tonight, and anytime Miles asks me to do anything, I'm giving Miles the microphone. So, give it up to Miles.
Okay, so thanks from all of my family and friends, and I'm so happy for my dad and my mom for working at the office, and I'm so proud of them. And I'm Miles Keenan, and I used to be in Western Elementary School. That's my own school I went to, and then I just got transferred from that school to my middle school house. So I'm so excited to have my family again, and so excited for my mom working at Stormtown Properties, and my dad working at his office in Maple Park, and I'm so excited for my dad to play soccer with Clint Hall, and I'm so excited.
So just on a side note, when I was running for judge, I had to go out and I had to campaign a lot. I learned one thing: if there was anybody that I did not want to run against, it was Miles Keenan. All right. So first of all, Coach Daly told some stories, and one of the stories was he said, I picked these teams. I did not pick the all-decade teams. If I had picked the all-decade teams, Hartwell would not have been on it. I also want to tell you that, so one of the most important prized possessions in my life is this third place trophy up here. My wife, we had these trophies at our house. My wife was so kind. She polished these up. She made them beautiful for the event. And then what does the class of 1983 do, these guys that I consider friends? They stole the frickin' trophy and changed it. So anyway, there's some friends that you have and some friends that you have that you'd rather not have. But anyway, they brought it back. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk to you about the all-time team. So if anyone's been reading the Facebook posts, there's a couple questions people have. One is, do I actually work? I do work. And the second thing is, how in the world do I have such a memory about all these players? And I'll tell you a couple things. Number one, I do work. And number two, I just love St. Charles soccer and St. Charles soccer history so much that I've been following it for 40 years. And it's just been so much fun to try to put together these all-decade teams. So this is what we did. We got all the coaches' input. We had all-decade teams. We have a board over here that has the St. Charles, the top 11 of each decade, and the reserves. So to be eligible to be on the top team of all time, you had to have been on that list. We got together at a bar, of course, and started to debate the different players. And then we came up with a reserve and then the top 11 of all time. So before we announce that, I just want you to think about what that really means. When you hear about the history of the program and you talk about the number of players that have been coming through the program, to be even on this list is a pretty cool thing. And so when we talk about St. Charles soccer right now, one of the greatest announcers in the history of St. Charles sports is at the school right now. I asked him if he would be kind enough to announce the top team of all time. And so I'd like to introduce Neil Curry. So for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of being in a Saints game, our announcer, Mr. Curry, has a unique way of, he's usually behind glass and no one sees him.
Guys at the back, hello.
So I'm going to turn it over to a guy that we just absolutely love in St. Charles. And Neil Curry's going to have the honor of introducing the all-time Saints team.
Couple of observations this evening. One, I didn't expect to run into St. Charles royalty. It was wonderful. I met so many cool people. I met the family that started the program. I met a young lady whose son was the first goalkeeper. Really cool. And then some observations. First, Paul Keenan. I've never met you, but I've heard so much about you from the lady teachers at school. And yes, you are a handsome Irishman. I can say that. I'm a Scotsman. I know, you're swinging. All right. Love it. Second, Tim Daly. I taught at St. Charles East. I think we spoke once, and yet your voice, it's like God spoke to me. That was beautiful. Thank you. I didn't know David Kins was a cop. How cool is that? And yet, how many times did I ask you or tell you we're doing the national anthem? Very cool. And we give you a pie. And lastly, Vince. Who would have ever thought you're coaching and everyone in the room's older than you? How cool is that? All right. My knees are knocking. Here are the reserves. From Decade 4, Truett Batten, who is not here. Also not here. Decade 3, Javier Melgar. And from Decade 2, Rob Myers. Now, for those who are present for the reserves, from Decade 1, he's known as a fierce defender, a two-sport athlete, basketball and soccer, graduated in 1989. Team captain, played soccer at Illinois State University, current head coach at Aurora University, met him in the press box once, rescheduled Aurora's soccer game today so he could be here tonight, and his sister teaches at the high school, Ryan Lincoln. He had hair in the press box. It was really cool. Next up, from Decade 2, graduated in 1992, team captain, All-State in 1992, three-year varsity starter, known for his dominance in the air on corner kicks, Wallace Layton. So cool. I was wondering who was in that cool shirt. You have to show that shirt. It's awesome. Next up, for the reserves from Decade 1, Mike Miller. He graduated in 1984. All-area player in the history of the program. Went to Notre Dame University. Last but not least, from Decade 3, this gentleman graduated in 2006. He was the captain and had All-State honors, played 4 years at NIU. He's now a coach, Louis Mojica.
We are ready.
This is so exciting.
Shout out to the ball director, Kurt Rowe.
Big time shout out. My knees are knocking still.
Bring it together.
There's a window in front of me. Now, not present for the all-time team, our first person is from Decade 4. He was a three-year varsity starter, team captain, all-state player 2015, two sports, starring in both basketball and soccer, and he attended Indiana University. Evan D. Lenardi. Represented by Mr. and Mrs. D. Lenardi.
That's not that old.
You know, it's so cool. If you read the script, it says, don't announce all the other information. I did that, so I gotta do this for this one too. That's why I get paid the big bucks. Next up, not present, but here with us in spirit, from Decade 3, graduated in 2009, All-State player, played collegiate soccer at Marquette University, drafted in the 2015 MLS Super Draft by Seattle Sounders, Charlie Lyon. It's like in big letters, it says, just don't do that. That's why you're a judge. You make decisions that I can't. All right. Seriously, I'm a teacher. This is scary. Next up, from Decade 2, Rick Gettle. He graduated in 1991, four-year varsity player. One of few players in the history of the program to play varsity all 4 years. Led state sport first-place finish in 1990 and a second-place finish in 1991. Played at ISU. Rick, I'm not going to lie, you just gave me goosebumps. Next up, from decade 1, this person graduated in 1983, Chris Hegeman. Considered one of the greatest goalies to play for St. Charles Soccer, won a national championship for Wheaton College in 1984, and was named a collegiate All-American in 1985. Our next player graduated in 1992, a member of Decade 2. That is Brian Holcomb. Brian was captain and all-state player in 1992, a 3-year varsity player. The team finished second in state his sophomore year. Next up, a graduate in 2013 from Decade 4, T.C. Hall. Named All-State and All-Midwest in 2013 after scoring 31 goals. Played Division I collegiate soccer at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. This person graduated in 1995, part of the Decade 2 program, Ryan Lindgren. Captain and all-state player in 1995. Senior year team won the state championship, going undefeated with a record of 28-0-1. Played Division I collegiate soccer at University of Illinois Chicago. A number of Saints followed him, and also played at UIC. He's a 2-sport star, basketball and soccer. Clint, where are you? I need you. I'm really scared right now. Stand next to me. Oh, thank God. I played at Glenbrook North. We played St. Charles, and we got our asses kicked 2 years in a row. I need you right now. Back to this. Our next player graduated in 1985. He was a captain in All-State and All-Midwest in 1984. He's from the Decade 1 crew, Sam Mealy. Sam was a 3-year varsity starter. Team finished 3rd place his senior year. One of the leading goal scorers in the history of the program. Congratulations, Sam. You ever seen the 40-year-old virgin, Clint? When he's getting waxed, he's like, hold my hand, man. I feel like that right now, but I don't want to do that.
I didn't know where you were going.
I know. Welcome to my world. Okay. Next up, a 1998 graduate, captain and all-state player in 1998 from Decade 2, Josh Robinson. He won a state championship in 1996 and his third in 1997. He's currently the head coach of the Cedar Valley High School, participated in this year's St. Charles Invitational. And congratulations on beating North in PK. It's okay, we can all clap. This got weird. Next up, a graduate of 1997, a 4-year varsity starter, All-American and Illinois Player of the Year in 1997, from Decade 2, Derek Shanahan! Derek played on both the 1995 and 1996 state championship teams, both undefeated, and the 3rd place team in 1997. Played Division I collegiate soccer with teammate Mike Murphy at Stanford, where his teams played in the NCAA Division I College Cup. And last, but not least, from Decade 1, graduated in 1986, 4-year varsity player, George Wendell!
became an All-American in 1996. The first Saint to be named an All-American, All-Midwest, and All-State his junior year in 1985. Broke IHSA tournament record scoring all 5 of his team goals and leading his team to a 3rd place finish in 1984. The all-time leading goal scorer in Saints history with 89 goals and the all-time points leader. Let's hear it again for our all-time team!
All right, so gentlemen, a couple things. We're going to have you take your seat, but we would like to get your picture at the end, so I know you're going to be wanting to drink and celebrate. But after we're done, if you guys could come up so we can get your picture, that would be fantastic. Congratulations. All right, no, we have a couple more awards. Here we go. I need everybody's attention. All right, hold on. We still have. All right, hey guys. All right. We need everybody's attention, please. All right, so we're going to go out and give out the next award, and for me, this is the most important award of the night, so I'd like everybody's attention here. So what could be more important than honoring our best players? Well, what we wanted to do tonight is to honor a representative of kind of the volunteers that have made this program so important. So when we as a committee talked, and we said, how is it that we can look through 40 years of Saints soccer history, how in the world can we pick one person or one set of parents to represent all the 40 years of parents that have been so important to the program? So we sat around and we started to talk about all the families that have been so important to the program, and ultimately what we came up with is we came up with one name. I just broke a thing there. When we talked about it as a group, we went through all the generations, we went through all the different names, and we said, well, let's talk about this one particular couple. This one particular couple was here at the beginning of St. Charles Soccer back in 1978, 1979. They had 4 kids, all who played in the program. So they were parents, and they were actively involved in trying to support everything that St. Charles Soccer was all about. Then back in the beginning of the program, what they would do is they would go around and say, hey, we need people to coach soccer. And this couple, not the man, but both the husband and wife said, you know what, we'll step up to the plate. And they became 2 of the greatest coaches throughout the 80s and 90s, not only coaching their own kids, but also coaching other kids, including a bunch of girls teams who had players that went on to win state championships. Then, during the soccer community, they said, you know what, we need referees because we need people that can be out there and know the game. And again, not just the husband, not just the wife, both of them said, you know what, we're going to step up to the plate and we're going to learn how to be referees. And they became some of the best referees that this area has ever seen. More importantly, they encouraged all of us to referee. I remember at one particular game, I was really upset because I had been, I thought, wrongfully abused by some parents. And I went and I talked to this gentleman and I said, you know what, I just don't think I have it anymore. I just don't want to ref. And he said, you know what, Clint? This is what you tell those guys. Blow it out their ass. And by this time, you probably know who I'm talking about. But then, yeah, but so, and then when we talked about it, we talked about, you know, what are they doing now and how is it that they can continue to give to the program? We have the gentleman, the Mr., who is still coaching to this day. So I want to think about that. 40 years later, he is still coaching in the St. Charles soccer program. So I want everybody to think about the 40-year commitment that this couple made. I want this couple to know that when we had to come up with one name, it was unanimous. We didn't really have to think about it any more than this just makes complete sense. So I'd like to ask Chuck and Dixie Riley. So what we've done is we're going to give them a plaque or a little plaque that reads as follows, and if I get choked up when I read this, it's just because of how important it is. It says, "This award is given in recognition of Chuck and Dixie Riley for their 40 years of service to the St. Charles soccer community, and as a thank you from all the players whose lives they have impacted along the way." September 7th, 2009, Chuck and Dixie Riley.
We live in a wonderful community. I was on a career path. I was supposed to move every 3 or 4 years. We got here. We got into soccer. Our children got in these schools, and we just never left. And in defense of both of us, I want to say, Clint, I wouldn't say that.
You said it a little bit different.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, so we are just a minute away from opening up that bar. There's a couple things left. I think that John Punis is asked to come up, and I'm going to go ahead and hand him the mic, and then after John gets done, I just have a quick toast, and then it's back to the bar. John?
It'll be really quick. But I wanted you guys to know, my wife, we live out in Colorado. Her team won state when she was in high school. And when things started going on about this, she started reading up on it. She goes, "Man, you guys have no idea how cool this is." And I couldn't agree with her more. I mean, to have an opportunity like this to see all of my old friends and meet some new ones is really pretty special. So I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in putting this together. And in particular, I'd like to thank my really good friend, Clint, for all the time and the passion and the effort that he's done for this. So please join me in thanking him.
So we're going to end the night. Couple reminders before we get back. Number one, when you look around this room and you see all these different things, it comes back to one guy, and it's Gary Cole. One of the most talented graphic design guys I've ever met. Every time we would say, "Gary, we don't need to do that. I think it's going to be okay," he'd say, "You know what? We need to make this great." So Gary put this sign together, and we would like everybody, after you're done, come on up. Not only players, but also fans and parents. And please place your name to this banner for the 40 years of Saint Soccer. Next is Blue Goose, again, has done a wonderful job. We've got food, we've got cake, and you can not only stay out here, but outside is also free as well. So if you want to head out there, please do. And then again, just one last thing before I propose a toast. And I appreciate all the accolades. I appreciate the fact that you guys have been so kind, but this has been a group effort. When people ask me again, why did we do this? Look around the room, this is why we do this. Because ultimately, as Senator DeWitt said, you know, the wins are important, and they are. But ultimately, when you think about what really is important, it's the friendships that we've all made as a St. Charles Saint. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, I know that we've kept you from your drinks, but I'm going to ask you to, if you have a drink in front of you, to please raise your drink. And I'm going to, and this is the way I want it, this is the way I'd like to end this. So at St. Charles, what they talk about is they say, once a saint, always a saint. So I'm going to say once a saint, and I'd like you to all finish with always a saint. So to St. Charles Soccer, the 40 years, it's been so great. Thank you for coming back. And once a saint, always a saint. Have a great night, folks. Pictures up front of the all-decade team. The all-time